Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. George Pabis, and today's subject is Mesopotamia. Civilization began in Mesopotamia. The word civilization comes from the ancient Greeks, and it means city life. At the heart of a civilization are cities, huge urban areas where tens of thousands, even millions of people live closely together. A civilization has government, an organization that manages and controls the civilization. Writing is invented or adopted and used to help establish laws, boost the economy, and spread ideas. In a civilization, spirituality takes the form of a religion, a more organized structure of ideas that is grounded in sacred buildings and overseen by priests. Sacred stories, hymns, rituals, and eventually books pass the religious tradition from one generation to another. The people of a civilization are divided socially, economically, and politically. There are elites such as nobles, and then there are the commoners. There is a royal family who is put in charge. There are rich and poor because a civilization is based on a money economy, and some people will accumulate more money than others. To defend itself and support larger agricultural outputs to feed the population, the use of metals in making tools evolved. Stone-tipped spears were replaced with metal spear points. In a plow, a metal blade replaced a wooden one. To support the needs of many people in a city, long-distance trade was established that moved goods in and out of cities. All these characteristics of a civilization emerged first in Mesopotamia, a Greek word that meant the land between two rivers. Today, the region known as Mesopotamia is within the country of Iraq. Two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, created a rich alluvial plain where farmers could grow bountiful harvests. Unfortunately, both rivers were subject to unpredictable flooding that would devastate areas along the river. Mesopotamia also suffered from erratic rainfall, which meant that irrigation was necessary. The geography of Mesopotamia offered no natural barriers to protect its inhabitants from invasion. The Sumerians were the ones who created the first civilization along the Tigris and the Euphrates. From 3500 BCE to 2370 BCE, the Sumerians lived in independent city-states that never created a united government. A king ruled each separate city-state. People believed that their monarch was chosen by the gods or had the blood of the gods within him. Uruk was the first city, and many others followed, and over the centuries they traded and fought wars with each other. The Sumerians invented the first plow, the potter's wheel, and beer. They developed the first writing system, cuneiform, that used wedge-shaped symbols to represent sounds, and thus they created a phonetic alphabet. This system of writing was so successful that it would be used for thousands of years throughout the Middle East. Other civilizations would adapt the concept of a phonetic alphabet, like the Phoenicians, and that would later be used by the Greeks and Romans, and that would later be used by modern European languages. The Sumerians invented bronze, a mixture of copper and tin. Bronze weapons replaced stone weapons and gave the Sumerian armies a technological advantage over their opponents. The Sumerians developed mathematics to assist them in commerce, but also to help them develop a sophisticated lunar calendar. Irrigation projects managed by the government helped provide water for the crops that fed the population of the cities. The religion of the Sumerians provided ideas that other civilizations in the area inherited. According to the Sumerians, the gods were human-like, with human emotions like anger and jealousy. The Sumerians told stories about the gods orally, and then eventually those stories were written down. Modern people may call myths false, but they are just tales that express religious truths. The Sumerian creation myth told about a mother goddess, Tiamat, who waged war against her children. Eventually, one of her children, Marduk, killed the mother goddess. He cut off her head and buried it in the mountains. Through what had been her eyes began to flow the Tigris and the Euphrates. When he cut open her belly, the sky with the sun, stars, and moon emerged. The other gods rewarded Marduk with a temple and also created human beings to serve the gods as their slaves. The Sumerians built temples called ziggurats to honor their gods. Every city-state had a god that was its protector. Unfortunately for the Sumerians, their gods were unpredictable. Despite the offerings to the gods, erratic flooding still came and destroyed their fields of grain and sometimes their cities. The Sumerians turned to astrology to help them foretell an uncertain future. The Sumerians did not believe in an afterlife for humans. Only the gods lived forever. The independence of the Sumerian city-states came to an end in 2371 BCE when a Semitic-speaking people called the Akkadians, under a brilliant leader named Sargon, conquered Mesopotamia and established the region's first empire. The entire region of diverse people was united under one government. Fortunately for history, the Akkadians adopted Sumerian culture and preserved and spread Sumerian inventions and ideas to others. The unity of the region fostered trade. In 2100 BCE, the Akkadian Empire fell to invasion. Twice in its history, the city of Babylon managed to forge an empire in the region, first in 1900 BCE and then again in 626 BCE. The Babylonians absorbed Sumerian Akkadian culture and continued to foster a vibrant trade in the region and beyond. Babylonian coins have been discovered as far as the Indus Valley in India. Babylon was a thriving city with a cosmopolitan culture, much like modern cities today. A lot of people with a lot of different religions, with a lot of languages, ethnicities, lived within its borders. The modern world has inherited much from the Babylonians. It was they who developed astrology and their 12 signs of the zodiac, which are still being used today. Their mathematical system imagined units of 60, which we now use in telling time. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. Their calendar divided the day into two 12-hour periods. We do so as well, AM, PM. The Babylonian king, Hammurabi, who reigned from 1792 to 1705 BCE, ordered the creation of a code of law. These laws were carved into clay and distributed throughout the empire. One example shows Hammurabi receiving the laws from a god. The Code of Hammurabi provides us with a glimpse of Mesopotamian society. People of a certain rank in society were treated equally. Lower-ranking members of society would receive a harsher punishment for a crime against a higher-ranking individual than if they committed the crime against someone of their own rank. A higher-ranking person who committed that same crime against a lower-ranking individual would receive a lesser punishment than if he had hurt someone of his own rank. Marriage was a contract in which the bride's family paid a dowry to the groom. A man could have a mistress, but a wife who cheated on her husband would receive a death penalty. However, Babylonian women were allowed to own, sell, and pass on their property to their children, and even own their own businesses, which was rare in the ancient world. The Babylonians were the first to write down the myth called the Epic of Gilgamesh, but the story was centuries old by then. In the story, Gilgamesh is a brash young king of Uruk who has everything going for him. The gods were not pleased with him. They wanted to teach Gilgamesh a lesson, but Gilgamesh overcomes every challenge they think up. Then they decided to create Enkidu, a strong and wild person, to defeat Gilgamesh. In the battle that follows, Gilgamesh defeated Enkidu, and Enkidu flees. Instead of trying to kill Enkidu, Gilgamesh wants to befriend him, so he sends a young, beautiful woman into the forest to bring Enkidu back. The woman successfully does bring Enkidu back, and Gilgamesh and the wild man become best of friends. Not surprisingly, the gods are furious. As punishment, they give Enkidu a terminal disease. For all of Gilgamesh's wealth, political power, youth, and energy, he cannot prevent the death of his best friend. Gilgamesh is devastated. The only way he can be happy, Gilgamesh decides, is if he gains eternal life. Gilgamesh leaves everything behind, his family and his kingdom, to seek eternal life. During his quest, a priestess tells him that the gods have reserved eternal life for themselves, but they have given humans the gift of life. So Gilgamesh should give up his quest, wash himself, and go back to his home to enjoy the company of his wife and children. Gilgamesh rejects this advice. Eventually, he finds a very old man who had been given eternal life by the gods. This old man had survived a great flood by building a boat, and the rest of humanity had died in the flood. The old man tells Gilgamesh, "There is no permanence." After constant badgering by Gilgamesh, the old man finally tells Gilgamesh of a plant that will restore youth to an old person. Gilgamesh finds the plant, but while taking a bath, a snake takes the plant and pushes it down a well to be lost forever. Gilgamesh decides to let go of his quest, accept the fate of humanity, and return to his kingdom to be a good king, husband, and father. In 1600 BCE, Babylon fell to an invasion of Hittites and other people. From 1600 to 1200 BCE, the Hittites, an Indo-European people related to people who moved into Europe, set up an empire in what today is Turkey and Syria. Their technological advantage for a time was that they used iron weapons, which were stronger than those made out of bronze. Soon iron technology spread throughout the region. The Hittites competed with ancient Egypt for influence in the Middle East, and the two powers eventually signed the first peace treaty in world history. Unfortunately for the Hittites, a long series of attacks by the Sea Peoples, a group of people who probably originated in the Greek islands, weakened the Hittites and their empire dissolved. The Assyrians forged an empire that lasted from 1100 BCE to 612 BCE. They were citizen warriors who used terror and destruction as an effective weapon to subdue their enemies and keep them under control. From their capital at Nineveh, Assyrian kings eventually controlled a territory that included parts of Iran, all of Mesopotamia, Syria, Lebanon, and, for a time, Egypt. Eventually, a coalition of tribal people overthrew the Assyrians. In 559, Cyrus the Great became the king of the Persians, an Indo-European people who migrated into what today is Iran around 1000 BCE. Cyrus the Great created the largest empire in world history up to that time. It stretched from ancient Egypt to Afghanistan and into eastern India. Cyrus practiced religious tolerance, allowed local leaders to continue to rule, and build a system of roads to unite his empire and move his armies. He freed the Hebrew elites that had been enslaved by the Babylonians, which brought him much praise in the Hebrew scriptures. The Persians embraced a new religion called Zoroastrianism. Around 600 BC, Zoroaster had preached that the cosmos is a war between the forces of good and evil, represented by the god of good, Ahura Mazda, and the god of evil, Ahriman. Individuals had to choose which side they were on. Zoroastrianism believed that there would be a last judgment, that all individuals would be judged. Scholars believe that Zoroastrianism had an impact on the religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Since Zoroastrianism was never forced on others in the Persian Empire because of their religious tolerance, it never became a major religion outside of Persia, and slowly over time became a very small religion in terms of numbers. We will speak more about the Persians when we discuss the Greeks and the Macedonians in the future. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Bye-bye.